Calling all podcasters, musicians, vloggers, and reporters, and everyone else who wants crystal clear recording that's super portable. The Shure Motive family of microphones makes studio quality audio that's as simple as plug and play. Many of the world's top podcasters rely on Shure, and with a Motive line of iOS and USB microphones, portability is now your friend. Imagine being able to get great audio quickly and easily from your phone, tablet, or computer. Simply visit shure.com/motive to start getting great audio for your content now. That's SHURE.com/MOTIV.
Blog
College
Talk
football
Radio.
fans. College football fans, what's going on? This is another episode of Quick Slants. This is a special edition. We are calling this our draft edition, Prospects to Pros. I have a special guest with me. We don't have a Devin McMillan today. It's just me and my boy Shane Hallam here from Fake Pigskin. He is a fantasy football and NFL draft analyst. What's going on, Shane?
Man, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk draft. It's been a while since we were trolling around at the Senior Bowl years ago, so it's nice talking to you.
Definitely, man. It's been a minute. I have to get back down there one day. Had a lot of fun down there. But before we get started, we always like to kind of let people know who our people are. So for the fans that don't know you, I know you. I definitely know you. Let the fans know a little bit about yourself. Plug your work a little bit too.
Yeah, no, I've been I've been doing this for a long time now. It's been over a decade. I've been studying the NFL draft. I've wrote for sites all around the internet, draftcountdown.com. I had my own site, drafttv.com, for a while. This is what I do, and I've kind of focused in a lot more recently on skill position players, but college football's my bread and butter, and I've really trying to take it over to a fantasy football perspective. I've kind of started Devy leagues, which are developmental leagues where you draft players in college and develop them, until they're in the NFL and on your roster. So I even have leagues where I've drafted guys, sophomores, juniors in high school, and so my scouting goes deep, if you will.
Definitely. Very interested to get your perspective. This is going to be a bit of a free-flowing conversation, so folks just take a seat, get you a cold drink, get you a snack, get your popcorn ready. That's the best time. So we're going to talk. Everyone loves quarterbacks. So let's just get that one out of the way because we have so many good quarterbacks this year. And for me, I haven't really been super impressed, but the NFL is quarterback starved, and this year is no different. We have guys like Justin Herbert, Tyree Jackson, also Dwayne Haskins at Ohio State. What are you seeing at this quarterback position this year that maybe impresses you or maybe gives you a little concern?
I kind of have some concerns about this class. Not that it's terrible by any means, but I think it's a little bit weaker, especially when you compare to the past couple years. We've had some dynamic options at the top and some players that I felt could step in immediately. You mentioned Justin Herbert from Oregon. I think he's kind of cemented himself as the number one guy this year. And he had a little bit of a rough start, but he's gotten it back together. He shows just a really nice skill set. He has a nice tight spiral, good arm strength. He gets the ball there quickly, and even this isn't always the Chip Kelly Oregon of old either. So you have a guy that's taken some NFL pro snaps. But I think the big question mark is, does he go back to school? He has kind of hinted that he wants to finish his college career before going on to the NFL. Being a number one, number two overall pick is enticing, though. So we'll see, because I think if he goes back to school, I think this quarterback class is a little bit in trouble, and I don't know if there's anyone else that I love as like a top 10 quarterback player. Like you said, we've seen some new guys kind of come on the scene. I think Dwayne Haskins from Ohio State could have a shot. He has good size, and he struggled a little bit at times staying in the pocket and making accurate passes from the pocket, but I think teams can put him through a workout. And I think a lot of the top players we thought coming into the year just have disappointed. Drew Lock from Missouri has played terrible against top teams like Alabama. Ryan Finley from NC State is okay, is good. Jarrett Stidham from Auburn hasn't played very well. Will Grier, I've heard that the NFL teams don't really like him much. So almost the next guy up for me is Daniel Jones from Duke. I think he's been super impressive. He has a good skill set. He plays in a pro-style system.
Don't remind me how.
Well, I wasn't going to bring that game up, but I think he's someone that the NFL scouts been highly complimentary of. But it's not like he's not a dynamic top 15 option. So I think if Herbert goes back to school and you're picking at the top of the draft, you want a quarterback, I think you're going to have some trouble. But I think that late first, early second round mix, there's a lot of players with potential that are going to need some grooming that might not be ready day one, but have some skill sets that you might like.
Shea Patterson comes to mind, former Ole Miss quarterback, transferred to Michigan after all of the craziness that happened down south down there. What are your thoughts on him? He's growing on me. He's really growing on me, but I want to see more.
I think he's just so inconsistent. We've seen him play well, and now that the Michigan staff is letting him use his athleticism, get out of the pocket, I think he's played a lot better. I mean, you look at that first game against Notre Dame where, he was atrocious, and I mean, I think there's a potential for him to get benched. He could barely complete passes down the field, and then they started giving him some options, kind of starting into the Big Ten schedule of bootlegging, getting outside. Kind of looking at one side of the field. So these last two games against two, pretty good defenses in Michigan State and Penn State, he tore them up, and I think that's where you see that potential. He flashes athleticism. He can get the ball down the field. I think the mental side of the game, there's still a lot of work for him to do, but as we know very well, and anyone out there that's followed the draft knows, that teams will take a player on that potential. We've seen the Josh Allens and the E.J. Manuel, get drafted earlier than they should, and Shea Patterson could fit into that mold.
Last quarterback here, and he's, I'm a Miami guy, and this isn't about anybody on that roster, but the guys up north, those Knowles up north, there's a quarterback there, DeAndre Francois. I feel like it was a really bad disservice by them by not getting him an offensive line. He got injured, came back. He didn't look all that great, but I feel like he's gun shy. Is he a legit NFL prospect, or is he at this point just a project? Maybe a team wants to stash him away. What are your thoughts on him?
I really liked him 2 years ago. I thought, I watched him in high school and felt like this is a player with an NFL skill set, even though he's a little short. We're seeing that kind of go by the wayside. But, I think this year, I think that injury really did something to him. I think he's a different player this year, especially that first game against Virginia Tech. He looked shell-shocked. He looked like he hadn't played quarterback before, and the offensive line still is pretty bad, and the team's pretty bad at Florida State. Now they can barely run the ball sometimes. So I don't think it's good. I think if you're a team though, take him in the 6th, 7th round, get him as an undrafted free agent. I think he can be a developmental project. I think he has a place on an NFL roster, but gone are the days of being a top 100 pick.
Now, we all know every good team can either do one of two things. They can throw the ball and they have a really good quarterback, or they have somebody that can get after that same quarterback. This defensive line class is going to be loaded, absolutely loaded. And we can talk about the Nick Bosa's of the world. We can also talk about the Rashawn Gary. Ed Oliver's my favorite of all of the three. But Clemson also, we can kind of get into those guys too, because they have a bunch of different guys that do a bunch of different things. What do you think of this D-line class?
I think this is the strength of this class is the defensive line. Not even, it's not even all the kind of speed defensive ends, So you talk about Clemson, and you have Cleveland Farrell's probably going to be the first one off the board, a guy that can stand up in the 3-4. I think that can be a typical 4-3, and he has continued to just dominate. I thought, man, there's no way this Clemson defensive line is going to keep this up. It's been kind of 2 years that this defensive line's been so good. We've been projecting all these guys as first-round picks. Someone's got to take a step back. But, I mean, Farrell he's sacking the quarterback every single game. He seems to be around the football. He's forcing fumbles. This line is absolutely incredible. So I think you have those guys. But, you also have some good players in the middle. I think this is actually a really strong defensive tackle class, and not just like here's a big body we can stick in the middle and stop the run with, right? That's kind of gone by the wayside. But, once again, to go back to Clemson, Dexter Lawrence is a guy I probably think late first, early second rounder that creates pressure. He gets low and he's a big dude, but he gets low for how big he is. And, you get your pads underneath someone else, you can make a move, and that's something that he does, and he has those players around him. I think the problem is when we see these elite defensive lines, we've seen it before, Florida State comes to mind, that there's at least one of those guys that's not real, right? At least one of those guys that's not as good as he looks because they're all so great. So someone's going to get a bust out of this, and you're probably going to get some all pros out of this too. But I could rattle off names of this defensive line class all day. I'm a big fan.
Definitely, and of course I got to ask you about one of my guys, Joe Jackson at the U. Of course, you can't have an NFL draft without one of those guys, at least one of those guys going anywhere within those first of those 7 rounds. What do you think of him? Long, rangy guy. Does he fit anything you like?
It's interesting. He was a player I had pegged. A lot of people, you included, had mentioned him to me. Someone, hey, you got to watch this guy this year. And the first couple games for Miami, I watched him, and I was like, I don't know what people are talking about. Like, I felt like he got pushed off the ball a lot. Even against weak competition, I didn't feel like he played that well. And then kind of mid-season, he really turned it on, and I saw that nice natural bend that he has getting around the edge. You could see there's a little bit of power to him as well. Like he's not a one-trick pony where a lot of these players that put up these big stats can only do one thing, can only have that spin move or only has that swim move or only use, just kind of tries a bull rush. But Joe Jackson actually does a little bit of everything, which I like a lot because that tells me in the NFL, if something's not working, you have other options. I think some of the guys that we see bust in the NFL are players that can only do one thing. They can do it really well, but if it doesn't work, then you're done. And I think Joe Jackson's not that guy. So I think he's probably going to go on the second day if he tests well. The size, the range, there's just a lot there to like. And I think he can get to the quarterback, and that's what teams need right now.
Well, here at War Room Sports, we believe in the line of scrimmage on both sides. And the defensive line, we know those guys are going to get after it. But what is this offensive line class looking like? I mean, you have guys like Greg Little coming in. He's one of the premier tackles, and the SEC is known for having those guys. And he's following in the footsteps of Laramie Tunsil, who hasn't been terrible. Hasn't been good, but he hasn't been terrible either.
I think it's so hard nowadays to play offensive line in the NFL. I think it's really difficult with all the pass rushers, and this is what the teams kind of have to sell out because you can't hit receivers anymore. You got to really sell out to get to that quarterback. So I think sometimes we expect these Joe Thomases of the world, and that's just not going to happen as often. But I think Greg Little can be very good. I think this tackle class is weak. Usually you have a handful of guys at the top that like, these are studs. These are great players. I don't think we have that. I think Little is probably number one. He's number one on my board, number one, number two in this class. And he's not consistent, but he flashes that size and athleticism. You mentioned Laramie Tunsil. I think he's very similar to Tunsil, just in how he plays, where he'll give up some pressures, he'll get pushed off the ball, but he'll come back the next play and hammer that guy. he doesn't play down to his competition. So I think he should declare. I think this is a good class to kind of declare. I think him and Jonah Williams from Alabama, in that SEC mold are kind of the two top guys. They're very different. I think Little's better at handling, the edge rushers and using his body, whereas I think Jonah Williams is more of a technician, with his leverage and with his arm usage, even if he's not the most athletic, someone that could kick in a guard, and be really good too. So, past that, I don't think there's anyone else that I think is, surefire top 10 pick potential. And that's usually not how this goes with the offensive line class.
Yeah, the offensive line has been it's been fairly weak at least the last two seasons. I don't know. For me, I kind of developed the theory that we're less dependent on tackles. You can survive in this league with above average tackles. You don't have to have that Hall of Fame Orlando Pace kind of player. You can have a Nick Folder and win a Super Bowl. Whereas if you solidify that interior, that center, that guard position, you really can, because so much of the game is now inside run, zone running, everything's run out of shotgun now. So now you can kind of scheme your way around things, but the linemen are changing. There's no such thing as big plodding linemen now. They're really athletic guys. The guys like a Zach Martin or a Travis Frederick are the prototypes now.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think sometimes, I think you have to just fit your scheme to your players, right? If you have some guys that can move in space, how do you utilize them in that scheme? Do you have a running scheme, a zone scheme that can work for that? Do you have players that aren't going to make big mistakes? Big holding calls that can kill you sometimes more than whiffing on a block but still being able to hold a guy for a second. So it depends on a lot. And, I think there's some interior guys. I like Cody Ford from Oklahoma, who's their right tackle. I think he's definitely a guard at the next level. But you have these big 330-pounders, and that can move a little bit. Has athleticism for their size. If you can just harness that, they can be efficient for you. Even, like you said, even if they're not the Orlando Pace type that's going to be able to dominate top-tier defenders in the NFL, you don't have to do that consistently every single play, every single second. You don't need your quarterback to have 8 seconds in the pocket. He better be getting the ball out in a couple seconds, and if you can just be good enough for those couple seconds, then you're solid.
Now, the position that is really the game changer, and every team is looking for that next guy, the tight end position, because now they're just big receivers, but they're the ultimate mismatch. And every team wants a Gronk, a Jordan Reed, a Trey Burton, heck, even a Evan Ingram, he's just a complete mismatch. Safeties can't get on him, too small, maybe a little bit too slow. Linebackers too big, can't be physical enough, and with the way that you can't really touch a guy now, guys, you can be an above average tight end now and really make your way in the NFL. Are there any tight ends that we should be watching for that may have a chance, may not be a first round guy?
I think it's actually could be, if the right guys declare, as always. This could be one of the best tight end classes we've seen in a long time. I think that the pass catchers in this draft are definitely one of the better positions if you're of need of that. Noah Fant is just from Iowa, is a phenomenal tight end player. He's big, he boxes out, he's really strong, contributes as a receiver. He has become a better blocker this year. Like, you're watching him in on blocks that he would absolutely not be able to make last season. He's improved in that. So, I think if he declares, he has potential to be an incredible mismatch and a potential first-round pick at the tight end position. And then the two other guys that I really like, I don't know if they'll declare, I think there's still going to be a little bit ways to go. But Albert Okwuegbunam from Missouri is someone that's been just a dangerous mismatch in Drew Lock's favorite target there at Missouri. Even though he hasn't quite produced the statistics this season that he did last year, he's open all the time. And, this Missouri offense has not run quite as well. So it kind of surprises me. I think he has a shot with his athleticism and size to be a first-round pick. And then Irv Smith from Alabama, his dad was drafted with a first-round pick. His uncle played tight end in the NFL. So, here's a guy that's generationally really good. And he's kind of a very smooth athlete. He's not like the O.J. Howard that kind of could beat you down the field and do things like that. But you see Irv Smith catch the ball. He doesn't really lose speed. He's able to kind of elude defenders more than just run them over like a lot of tight ends do. So really intriguing players. All three of them have some blocking ability too. So I think that is what kind of separates you. And I think you have potential. Also, I don't know if they'll declare, but if they do, I think all three have potential to be kind of that late first, early second round mold.
Let's kind of lump these two positions here together because I want to get some future guys in there as well. But the running back position and the cornerback position, we see running backs are going a little bit higher and being a little bit more valued. And the cornerbacks there's some good ones. Greedy Williams comes to mind. Really, really love him. Who are some guys at those two positions that really, not necessarily upper level guys? We know who the upper level guys are, but talk to us about some of the mid round, the second, third, fourth, fifth round guys who can really get in there. Who would be some of those guys that would fit in those kind of positions?
Sure. I think at running back, I don't think it's a particularly strong class in total. But I do think you have some of those later guys that could be really good. One of the ones that had a lot of buzz years ago was Myles Gaskin from Washington, and I really feel like he kind of came back to his old form. He was a player last year I was kind of writing off as his best days are kind of behind him, but he stepped in there, 5'9", 193, he's catching the football a lot. So kind of this two-way player, him and then Devin Singletary from Florida Atlantic is kind of that smaller, stockier Tariq Cohen type, 5'7", 200 pounds, catches the ball, can take it to the house and has some explosion. So I like those guys in that third to fifth round mix. Cornerback, like you said, at the top, there's some great ones. Greedy Williams is exceptional, but I think lower into the game, you have some maybe big-time schools that have produced some good corners. Kendall Sheffield from Ohio State, if he decides to declare, I think he's a player that has kind of stepped in that Denzel Ward role and played pretty well, even though he doesn't quite have the size. And I think that's what's going to knock him down. He's done really well. And then, I like some of these small school guys. Cornerback is always one of those positions that you can look for that. Corey Ballantyne from Washburn, if you haven't been able to watch him yet, he's someone to take a look at. Really good tackler, physical, 5'11", about 190. He has an eye for the ball, and he really shuts down his side. When you see a small school corner, I want them to be a shutdown corner, and that's something that he does. And he comes up the line and hits running backs. His guy's a lot bigger than him and takes him down. So there's your small school drop for this segment.
All right, now last but not least, before we get you out of here, 2020. We've seen a few glimpses of 2020. And Jake Fromm, Tua Tagovailoa, Cam Akers. Who are some guys going into 2020 who are now sophomores that maybe we should be waiting for going into next year?
Yeah, look, I think 2020, you have such a good class. You mentioned some of those good quarterbacks and running backs that are going to be out there. I think this is going to be a really good class for those skill positions. Running back, Cam Akers was kind of my top guy going in, but you have so many. Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State, he's going to be out there. We're going to see, we're going to see maybe some of these guys that go back to school come out again for their DeAndre Swift from Georgia has been phenomenal this season. He's a player that I think could potentially be the number one running back off the board. I think this running back class is Darrell Henderson from Memphis. I think this running back class in Najee Harris from Alabama is just going to be out of this world for 2020. So I think if you're a team that needs a running back, it's almost might be better to kind of wait a year, see what you can piece together in the late rounds this season and wait for next year, because I think you're going to find some guys, and probably some will drop further than they should. Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin is one of my favorites too. So there's so many players in the quarterback and running back position in 2020. I think it's going to be a killer position for those skill players.
No doubt. Shane, it's been great, man. Anytime we get out to talk a little bit of draft, we can do this all night long. But before we get out of here, man, let the people know where they can reach you. Definitely everyone wants to engage in draft talk because their team is always – you got to let them know who that one player is. Let us know where they can find you.
Absolutely. You can check me out on Twitter, @Shane P. Hallam. I always answer questions and be happy to have conversations with you. I'm also, you can check me out at fakepigskin.com, which is where I write about Devy players, some of these college players. I've written about some 2020 guys, so check out the Devy section of the fantasy article. And it was a pleasure. Freddie, you're the man, and hopefully we get to do it again sometime.
No doubt, man. I appreciate it so much, man. We might have to catch up maybe sometime around the national championship, maybe after the Super Bowl for a little bit of an update. All right, man. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having you on.
No, thanks so much.
All right, folks. That was Shane Hallam from FakePigskin.com, draft analyst, fantasy football analyst. Always a pleasure to have him on whenever we talk draft. We talk about your favorite players and where they could go because your team is one play away. You guys can catch me on Twitter, Produce CFB. This has been a special edition of Quick Slants brought to you by the War Room Sports Podcast Network. You guys can catch me as well as my partner in crime, Dev McMillan, on the next episode of Quick Slants. Make sure you go check us out on the YouTube page. Make sure you go check us out at warroomsports.com for all the latest. Until next time, folks. Stay safe and peace.
War Room Sports, www.warroomsports.com. What? Ain't no more to it.